Hey, it's Quadix here. Like the video and comment Q before I disappear again. This is basically what if Naruto was a war genius like Minato. It is kind of similar to the original story, especially early on, but major changes happen because of these little stuff that changes early on. The story is called Naruto Altered History, and it has a sequel for Shippuden that's full like war only. Basically that's where all the wars and stuff happen. This sets up the wars, sets up the characters. We get the Ino shit. Naruto's generation's a lot more like the Sensei's generations or Minato's generations, being raised in like a war scenario and stuff. I hope you enjoy the story and let's get into it. There once appeared a nine-tailed demon fox. One swing of its mighty tail could crumble mountains and create tsunamis. To fight the demon, the people assembled the shinobi, but only one could stand against the demon. The air was dry, heavy almost, with the unnatural heat. It was a heat that had baked the ground solid, and it almost turned it to glass. It never faded. It felt as if it was attempting to consume the landscape with a relentless hunger. In the distance, the heated nightmare air was filled with hoarse shouts. They seemed to grow closer for a moment, and then fade away, leaving a silent void with nothing but the unbearable heat. This was the world that the Yandame awoke to. His body stiff and sore. He could taste the copper of his own blood, and his mind could only struggle in an attempt of rational thought. He wasn't finished yet. This thought was galvanized by the feel of the bundle and his arms moving. He had to get up. He had to. Biting his lip to keep from screaming at the pain he was placing on his already taxed body, he rose shakily to his feet. It had been so painful, almost murder to use that jutsu, but he couldn't think about it. He held the still moving but silent bundle in his arms tightly, forcing his way upright. Stumbling, he almost collapsed as one of his legs tried to give out, but his fanatically devotion to the protection of the village allowed him to force his way through the pain. He scanned the world around him, swaying, and wondered if the village would ever recover. He could see the shattered walls of the village. Nobody was moving near them. Fear would be rampant. Now was his chance to protect the village. He stumbled forward, struggling to maintain his balance and keep from dropping the precious bundle in his arms. He almost collapsed, but managed to reach the hole where he fell forward, thankfully managing to brace himself up with one hand. He didn't have long. He had to hurry, but his chakra was almost gone. He could feel the god of death, cold fingers digging deep into his soul, hacking away at it. A cough racked his body, followed by a spray of dark blood. Could he do it? No, he had to. If anyone found him now with this baby, he couldn't let that happen. He had to do something. He couldn't let him know. He could feel several ninja approaching at high speeds. Not for him, but the fallen shinobi around him. They would find him if he stayed much longer. But honestly, didn't know how much chakra he had left. He could die at any moment, and he had to ensure he was finished before then. His only chance was to gamble. Gamble his life. The baby in his arms' life, and Konoha's future. The Yandame didn't see any other options, however. He would have to use the Hiraishin. Closing his eyes, he concentrated, struggling to separate the hundreds of different locations for the one he needed. Finding it, he started molding all of his remaining chakra, praying that this would work. 1 minute, he was propped up against the shattered wall. The next, he was sprawling across the shattered pavement in front of the darkened hospital. Suddenly, the baby started crying, making an unholy racket. The Yandame coughed, the cold fingers of Shinigami tightening around his throat. Placing his palm against the ground, he leveraged himself forwards, blood splattering the ground as he stumbled back up to his feet. Forcing his way through the cracked glass doors, he stumbled into the dark hospital, his eyes darting around, disoriented. Stumbling, he started towards a set of damaged stairs, almost collapsing. He managed to keep his balance and reached a nearly empty hallway, almost collapsing once more. He couldn't fall yet, just a little more. A little bit more. His mind was already crumbling, but he couldn't stop. He had something important to do. Forcing the door open, he stumbled into the dark room filled with crying babies. Finally, he could. Stumbling to an empty crib, he managed to release the child. Ignoring the blood streaks on the boy's young face, the child would be safe now. Safe. Yandame-sama. At the shout, his legs gave out and he collapsed to his knees, staring up at the terrified-looking nurse. She seemed so far away, but she was getting closer, reaching out for him. But the Yandame pulled away. Please, help me. What? The QB? Dead. Coughing, he fell forward onto his hands, his breath becoming ragged. Please, help. The nurse nodded cautiously, kneeling in front of him. What? Just... One brave shinobi was able to seal up the demon, but he lost his life. That shinobi was called the Yandame Hokage. Okay, that death scene is written a lot better than I read it, so I do apologize to the author. This is actually like pretty well written. Mountain Oinari. The road was well cared for, with no tracks marking the telltale signs of carts. The road itself that winded its way up and over the mountain was only wide enough for 2 people to pass with comfort. One top of the mountain, of course, things flattened. Its top had been sliced clean off during the Kyuubi's attack, and in the center was a large crater where it was rumored that Yandame had first assaulted the beast. I like how that's how the story spun. The merchant currently traveling the road was chubby. Okay, there's no need to point that out, alright? It's summer. With more than 3 jewels and dressed in the finest clothes that money could buy. It was safe to say that he was indeed wealthy. He owned several bus towns and a Pagani. He owned several shops in Konoha and other various large villages inside the country of fire. And he gave generous charities, yet this was not to say that he was a very nice person. This particular merchant was very greedy, and anything he donated, he made sure he got back through raising prices. Oh, he's like the government. Using a silk scarf to wipe the sweat away from his face and neck. His mistress had made it quite clear that if he did not lose at least 1 chin, she would dump him and then speak to his wife. So of course, the merchant had taken to walking up Mountain Oinari, one of the most secure roads in the country, to lose the required chin. Reaching the tops of the mountain, he turned back to stare out over the way he had come. He could see the vast sea of trees that marked the boundaries of the hidden village of Konoha. To the south, he could faintly make out a series of flatlands that rolled off endless, flanked to the west with distant hills. To the east, standing out over the forest and showing the true location of the most powerful military power on the continent, was the infamous Hokage Mountain. Gathering his nicely tailored cloak tighter, he turned and started walking once more. His goal today was to see the exact center of the crater on Mount Onari. Maybe he could make some money selling dirt or rocks from the fabled location. Reaching the crest of the crater, he paused, his mouth going dry as he stared in disbelief at what he saw. There, covered in dirt, was what looked like a rather large, about the size of a man, white ball. The gears in the merchant's head suddenly started turning rapidly. He knew the legends involving Kitsune. His grandmother had been very fond of telling them, among others, to him. According to the legend, Kitsune would place power into a ball and then either hide it or use it as a child would. He wet his lips, slipping and sliding down the slobbing crater edges, mind racing. The QB had been a kitsune, an immensely powerful one, a nine tails, rarer than any other. If this, for what other kitsune would have such a large ball, did belong to the QB then, it might still contain a portion of its power sealed inside. He could sell it to the Hokage, or rock, or lightning. They would pay anything to get their hands on it. With this, it would be possible to surpass the country of fire and power. Reaching the ball, he carefully moved closer and reached out, hand trembling as he thought about the amount of money he was now facing. He was sadly disappointed, however, when the ball disappeared in a puff of smoke and the ground gave out from under him, landing in a heap. He was disoriented and confused, at least until he heard a familiar laughter. Looking up at the edge of this pit he had fallen into, he stared coldly at a blonde-haired child, dressed in orange, who was now laughing at him. "How dare you! I'll have your head for this!" Crouching down, Naruto rested his arms on his knees, his face looking disgusted. "Oi, I think all those kids you cheated yesterday should have your head." The merchant paused, considering how to get out of this. Apparently Naruto had been present yesterday when he had sold cheaply made items to a group of orphans at outrageous prices. The boy just did not understand business, yet the merchant also knew that trying to explain it would be pointless. So instead, he would have to lie. He was good at lying. Yeah, maybe you're right." Nodding, the man looked as pitiful as he could. "I'm sorry. Of course you're right. I should have never. I just let my greed get the best of me. I'll refund her money as soon as I get back." Offering his hand, he smiled disarmingly. "Help me out?" "Bah," Naruto muttered dismissively, lowering his head as he hesitantly held his hand out to the man. Reaching out to grasp it, he was suddenly jolted when Naruto slapped his hand away and grinned mischievously. "Yeah, right, idiot," Naruto laughed, eyes closing as he made a thumbs down sign. "You think I'm that stupid? Hey, if you don't help me get out, then I'll tell the Hokage what you've done." The merchant felt his anger fading as the blonde's eyes narrowed and he stood up. Unable to look away, he watched as the boy unzipped. Hey, yo! Alright, we're skipping that. Naruto. Did he just yellow Snowball? No, that's crazy. Anyways, Naruto, Altered History, Chapter 1, Graduation. "Tomorrow is the Ninja Academy graduation exam," said the tall man with a scar on the bridge of his nose. Staring at the blurry-eyed students, the man nodded, crossing his arms across his green vest. I still can't believe Naruto did that. That's crazy. Today, I think it'd be best to review a few things that might come out on the test. There was a notable upswing in attention and the man's side. First off, who can name the 5 great shinobi nations? He was not surprised to see half the hands go up, especially the pink-haired girl that sat in the second row next to the black-haired boy. Yes, Sakura, go ahead. Standing, the girl particularly beamed, glancing at the boy beside her. The great 5 shinobi nations are fire, wind, stone, lightning, and water. Each country is ruled by a daimyo, and he gets to decide laws and various policies. The respective hidden villages are controlled by kages, who are equal to daimyo. The system has been likened to having one country inside of another. Right, and where are the kages and ninja? The man asked, glancing at the timid hand raised in the far back. Yes, Hinata. The existence of a shinobi village means military power. The shy, white-eyed girl offered from her seat. Correct. Shifting his gaze to the others, he paused, noticing the lack of orange in the students, and frowned. The body is divided into 3 sections, where are the names and importance. Iruka scanned the room, picked on the boy who was standing out of the window looking at the clouds. Shikamaru? The boy sighed, shifting his gaze towards him before answering apathetically. High, middle, and low. Each section contains vital areas which should be aggressive in attacking and ending the fight as soon as possible. What does this high section include, and what damage can be inflicted? This is so troublesome. I agree. I don't feel like doing the whole section about like basic academy stuff, so I'm gonna skip a lot of it. But if you do want to go read it, like I said, the link's in the description. Iruka opened his mouth to ask his next question when the door opened and the all too familiar face of Uchiha Yoshiro, one of the oldest and most respected officers in Konoha's police force, stepped into the room. Yoshiro remained silent since Iruka knew exactly what this meant. Turning the scarred tuning side, nodded an amused looking Mizuki. The cyan-haired man stepped to the front of the room as Iruka hurried up the steps and then nodding faintly at Yoshiro, who disappeared out the door. Careful, brushwork, total concentration, dignity, and respect. Silence. That was the old man's surroundings as he carefully inked a letter to the great daimyo of the Fire Country. All around him were the trappings of his situation. A raised platform draped with a black carpet. It was rare for him to have the time for this. Usually his letters were rushed and hurried, but today, even the troublemakers were isolated in the academy. Nobody would skip class this close to the final examination. He would have the entire day to himself to concentrate on his brushwork. Hokage-sama. Stifling a curse, he stared at the now smudged kanji. Count to 10, count to 10, do not kill them, they are only messengers. Calm once more, he turned to see what emergency had brought them to him. He just barely managed to repress a groan upon seeing the two familiar uniforms of Konoha's police and a tightly bound and engaged boy named Naruto. Oh, they gagged Naruto? That's crazy. What was he saying? Saw him take a deep breath on his pipe, exhaling slowly. What did he do this time? You know, sometimes I forget how much of a menace Naruto was academy. He forced Matsushima-san into a hole on top of Mount Onari and then proceeded to yellow snow him. Uchiha Teka said, scowling. We would have handed him off to Anbu like normal, but he's almost 13, Hokage. Uchiha Inabi said seriously. We wanted to ensure that he understood what that meant. I understand, and I'm sure Naruto knows what it means. The third Hokage turned his gaze towards the boy, letting his displeasure shine through. Thank you for bringing him to me. No problem, Hokage-sama, Teka said, bowing as he turned to leave. His partner offered a bow shortly afterwards and followed, leaving the old man and young criminal alone. Taking another puff on his Uchiha pipe. That's a bad joke. Maybe it would have worked with Tobirama. The third Hokage considered the irate-looking boy before he closed his eyes. It would not be long before Iruka showed up to collect his wayward charge again. This is getting tiring, Naruto, the third Hokage said after a moment, opening his eyes to stare at the boy. Honestly, why do you insist on causing so much trouble? Naruto muttered something through his gag and the old man sighed, closing his eyes once more, wondering what was taking Iruka so long. Soon enough, the door to his office opened and a harried-looking chunin with a scar across his nose entered the room. Iruka paused, seeing the tied-up Naruto, and then sighed, looking up to meet the Hokage's gaze. Third Hokage, I apologize for this. Oh, did I not? Okay. Soon enough, the door to his office opened. Oh. Ah, Iruka. I was expecting you a bit sooner, the old man said kindly, before lowering his gaze to an angry-looking Naruto. "He's a handful, isn't he?" "Oh, yes, very much so, Hokage," Iruka said with a sheepish grin before reaching down to grab the boy and yank him upright. "What were you doing during class time?" Shaking his head, the Hokage couldn't help but take an extra long puff on his pipe before letting out several rings, listening to Naruto's angry, though muffled retorts. Something like, now he wondered how he ever let the Naidame ever talk him into taking this job. "Oh yes, the women." Okay. You know what? Fair enough. Iruka sighed, watching as Naruto used the shovel to fill in the hole he had so painstakingly dug. While Naruto would think it was painstaking, Iruka was sure that everyone else would see it as appalling. Iruka was torn on the matter, mainly because of the effort those pranks took. If only Naruto would apply himself to his studies as he did with these types of activities. Then again, since Naruto seemed to think differently than everyone else, it was just amazing that the boy could function even semi-normally. "Naruto, why do you keep doing stuff like this?" Iruka asked finally, and not for the first time. He was not expecting an answer. He had never gotten one yet. Naruto just ignored him and kept cleaning whenever he asked. "The bastard cheated a bunch of orphans," Naruto said hotly, and Iruka sighed. "So that's why." With all of Naruto's enthusiasm about being Hokage and a ninja, he had skipped a review session. It was not a widely thought about fact, but Iruka understood why this would bother Naruto so much. Without his parents, Naruto had been forced to raise himself, and he had not exactly been treated kindly either. That was the reason Iruka had even noticed him, because it was looking back at him that reminded him of his own parents' death. Only Naruto had never had parents, or anyone. Iruka spotted the shift in the body weight and crossed his arms. "I'm not letting you go home until you clean all of it." Naruto tensed, then looked up at him, eyes closed and face defiant. Then grunting, the blonde started shoveling dirt once more, mumbling something. Iruka could not help but sigh and lean back, remembering his own parents. He could vividly remember the emptiness and sense of abandonment each time he went home when he had been 12. That was a mistake. Anytime he did that, he always felt like letting Naruto go, but he could not do that today. That boy needed to learn that there were consequences for his actions. "Naruto." "What now?" Naruto complained, eyes squinting up at him in distrust. Scratching his nose, Iruka looked thoughtful. "Well, if you clean all this up, I'll buy you some ramen tonight." Looking down, he fought to keep from grinning at the way Naruto's face brightened. It was amazing how easily the boy could be cheered up. Iruka could remember the first time he had ever seen Naruto, and introduced him to the joy that was ramen. "Okay, I'll work really hard." Naruto cheered as the dirt literally started flying as if a hyperactive dog was at work. "And you'll have to buy me 2 bowls." "Wait, I didn't say that," Iruka shouted before chuckling at the way the boy concentrated on the task. Not for the first time, Iruka wished Naruto would concentrate like that during class time. In all honesty, Naruto wasn't a bad ninja, he just never tried. For a moment, he mused, using the ramen bribe for more things, but like always realized that he could just barely afford buying Naruto ramen once in a blue moon. The boy ate ramen like a fish breathed water. "Done," Naruto shouted happily, and Iruka jerked in surprise. Well, that was fast. 2 hours later was admitting such to Naruto as they both entered their favorite ramen stand. Naruto brushed it off and excitedly hopped onto a stall shouting for pork ramen, while Iruka made small talk with Ayame until her father shot them a dark glance. Iruka patiently waited until they were both served. Ayame served him with a wink and... "Oh, wait, this is happening? Okay." And then decided to attempt a serious talk with Naruto, who had removed his goggles. "Naruto, you're almost 13. If you fail the exam this time, then next year we have to expel you from the academy. That makes you a civilian, and then the police will not give you to Anbu or the Hokage. You'll be put in jail, Iruka explained, not sugarcoating it a tinsy bit. Well, I'm gonna be Hokage, so it doesn't even matter, Naruto said happily before he shoved an inhuman amount of ramen into his mouth. Naruto, do you really understand what the Hokage is? A Hokage is the strongest and most respected ninja in the village. Then you have to stop the pranks and pass the exams. One day, I'm going to be Hokage, and then I'm gonna surpass all the Hokages. Even the Yandem, I'll pass them. Iruka opened his mouth to refute that, but he saw the way those blue eyes glinted and he just sighed. He just could not take the boy's dream away, no matter how unrealistic it was. By the way, Sensei, I have a request. Can I borrow your forehead protector? No, this is after you graduate. It's the symbol that you've come of age. Maybe you'll get one tomorrow. You're so stingy, Naruto shouted, and Iruka laughed. That's why you removed your goggles. Seconds? No! Alright. Now for the last part of the graduation exam, Iruka said, taking the papers from Mizuki, setting them on a desk. Turning back to the class, he smiled faintly. You'll do the Bunshin no Jutsu. He shared a brief smile with Mizuki before turning back to the group. When you're called to come to the next room, and we're skipping to Naruto's bit. Bunshin. There was a loud pop and suddenly his chakra faded, allowing Naruto to relax and open his eyes. Seeing Iruka's look of horror, Naruto hesitantly looked to his right to find that yes, he had produced an illusion of himself, but it was one of the most pathetic things he'd ever seen. Naruto had to fight back the tears of disappointment as the illusion disappeared with a pop and a swirl of smoke. Naruto, you fail. Something inside of him collapsed. Some inner prop that had been holding him up. Suddenly, he was just some kid without any skills other than making trouble. He wanted to shout at Iruka, yell and scream. How was it even fair that he should fail? That he had created a Bunshin and that's how he should have been able to pass. He didn't want to be a civilian, just another orphan that could be cheated, lied to, sold, traded, or even killed. Iruka-sensei, Mizuki interceded, his voice tentative. This is the third time, and he did technically create a clone. We could let him pass. Naruto stared at Mizuki with almost slavish gratitude before looking at Iruka, who appeared to be serious. No, Mizuki-sensei. Everyone else divided into 3. Naruto only created 1 clone and it was pretty useless. Iruka-sensei, he was only required to create 1, and he did. It's not the number of clones, it's the quality. As it is, if he went into the field like this, he could be killed. Naruto met his teacher's steady gaze with a glare. He didn't understand. How could Iruka do this to him? Weren't they friends? Didn't Iruka introduce him to the joy that was ramen? I can't let him pass. Those words echoed in Naruto's mind as he watched from the swing outside of the academy. He saw the kids laughing and joking as they left the building, to be embraced and praised by parents. Everybody was so happy. Nobody even seemed to notice him sitting alone in the shade of the tree on the tired old swing. I can hear the music just from reading this. How could Iruka-sensei not pass him? Was it because he'd be a risk on a mission? No, of course not. He was just not able to create an illusion. It wasn't his fault that the technique was crappy. Besides, what use would it be in a fight? You couldn't even hit someone with it. Still, Naruto knew Iruka. The man wouldn't fail him knowing what would happen without a good reason. But Naruto knew he would not be a liability. So what possible reason could there be? Did it even matter? He'd failed this test, and next year he would. For as long as Naruto could remember, all he had ever wanted to be was a ninja that everyone respected. Someone that could stop bastards like that merchant or the orphanage workers that use the kids as, labor force. Let's just leave it at that. Someone that could stop them from doing what they did. A Hokage. His chest hurt from the knowledge that he had failed and that he would be ignored as everyone else, just forgotten. Leaving the swing outside the academy, he roamed away, exploring the currently empty streets. He tried comforting himself with the knowledge that he was more skilled than a non-ninja, that he could keep himself safe and he could still help others. Naruto, we should talk. Follow me, Mizuki said kindly, and then without a word took a running leap into an awning before rebounding and working his way higher and higher. Naruto quickly followed. Sitting down, they were silent for several minutes, and then Mizuki sat back, his hand supporting him. Iruka sensei is a serious person. His parents were killed when he was young, and he's had to do everything himself. Naruto crossed his arms. He didn't care why. It only mattered that Iruka failed him. He probably sees himself in you. Naruto, I'm gonna tell you the truth about something. Something you were supposed to never know about. What? It has a lot to do with you, why the villagers are so cold towards you, and why Iruka wants you to become strong in the real way before you graduate. I need to graduate this year, though. I know, but this is important, and afterwards, I'll tell you how to graduate this year despite the normal rules. Really? Thanks. You know, of course, about the great demon that attacked us 12 years ago. We lost the Fourth Hokage and many others in the terrible battle. It's the official reason for why you're so militaristic. Yet, Naruto, I don't think it's fair to hide the truth from you anymore. Huh? The truth is, we're really militaristic because of an event that happened several days after the Kibi's death. There was another attack on Konoha, this time from within. We're not sure which country it was, but an enemy nation took advantage of the chaos. They launched a toxic jutsu, something Anbu had never seen before or since, inside the hospital. It seemed to originate where the nursery was located, but it was powerful enough to toaster bath everyone inside the building. We lost countless wounded ninja, medics, and of course all the babies inside. Naruto felt his breath catch, wondering about what this had to do with him. Then seeing the way Mizuki was staring at him, he felt his stomach fall. All but one child somehow survived. That's why the villagers treat you so coldly. Many had already lost family, and now they had lost even more. But how did I... Well, nobody really knows. For a while, the Anbu believed that you were an enemy plant. The villagers themselves believed you were unnatural to have escaped the attack unscathed. Some of the older generations even said that you were born from the great demon's hate and spite for the village. A monster? Hardly. Although with the trouble you cause in the village, you do more to reinforce that idea than anyone else, Mizuki answered lightly. The truth is, Naruto, you probably survived due to a fluke. I mean, you lost your entire family to the beast on the same day you were born. You never had a chance to know him. Letting you survive was probably an act of kindness from the gods. Okay, you didn't need to go that hard. Naruto looked down, falling silent for several long moments before continuing. So all those glares and that coldness I suffer is because of something I didn't even have control over? Well, that and the fact you have been pulling pranks on some of the most well-represented and respected, powerful people in the village since practically the day you were born, Mizuki allowed, sounding amused, hearing Naruto mutter something about stuck-up bastards deserving it, while Mizuki continued. I have to know, how'd you create the balls since you can't do a proper henge? Oh, I used one of those, what do you see, what you get scrolls from back when I first entered the academy this year. Naruto grinned, eyes closing. I've got 3. Mizuki laughed. You really are a clever one. Naruto smiled, feeling a fondness for the man forming. So, how'd I become strong in the real way? It's the same thing that made Iruka strong, Mizuki said, tone gone serious. He protects you until you're strong enough to show everybody you're not some cursed child. That's why he is strong. He's protecting something precious to him. Precious? Naruto echoed, looking at the man. Yeah, that's when a shinobi truly becomes strong. When they're protecting something precious. Okay, is this a good Mizuki? Because they're really like, you know, showing him to be like a decent person to Naruto. If he's a good Mizuki, this is gonna be like a first. If he's not, this is gonna hit a lot harder when he gets betrayed. To me, you're one of my precious students, which by the way, is the reason I'm gonna help you graduate today. Mizuki smiled and Naruto couldn't help but smile back. Inside, he was almost bursting with pride now. This was the first time anyone other than Iruka had shown him this much interest. He listened very carefully as Mizuki... I don't like this. This is gonna be tough. As Mizuki told him exactly what he was going to need to do and where to go, noting how Mizuki claimed this path to graduation would be much harder than any test he had taken at the academy. When Naruto said that it didn't matter, he wanted the chance, Mizuki smiled just a bit more. Good. Now make sure you're at the training area after 8 and practice all night. I'm sure you'll graduate this year. That's tough. He'd get to graduate. Yes, in your face, Iruka. He won't get away with this one, Hokage. The Sandaime had to repress the groan of annoyance. These Jonin were looking far too excited for his liking. He was even willing to put money on the fact that those fools would kill Naruto before even thinking about capturing him. Still, he couldn't blame him. This was a very serious matter. Yet somehow he didn't quite think that Naruto was behind the thief. He is carrying a very dangerous scroll. It was forbidden by the previous Hokage. I don't know if he stole it as a joke or someone tricked him into it, the Sandaime said, his voice just barely raised. I don't want Naruto dead. I want him brought back so we can find out why he did this. It's been half a day since the scroll was stolen, so hurry and find him. Half a day? Okay. That said, he made a majestic sweeping gesture and the gathered ninja took off at high speeds, fluttering his robes. Sighing, he lowered his arms, wondering what exactly was going on. He'd been out visiting a friend of the family, and then when he'd come back, 2 Chunins were knocked out, and they claimed it was Naruto. Naruto knocked out 2 Chunin? How the boy could have gained entrance into the Hokage Tower, let alone Sandaime's private library, was baffling. Hokage-sama. Turning, Sandaime inclined his head at the silver-haired masked man standing behind him. We didn't find a trace of Naruto's chakra, or any signs that he was even here, Kakashi offered, his visible eye narrowing. But the eyewitnesses are telling the truth. According to Ibiki, so it appears Naruto's better than we first thought. I see, the Sandaime mused, before shaking his head. Oh, part of me says it couldn't have been Naruto, but all the evidence points to him, which is a shame, because I was starting to like him. At Kakashi's silence, Sandaime started walking, hands behind his back, aware of Kakashi falling into step behind him. So, how are this year's Anbu recruits? They're fine, though a majority can barely hold Jonin title. I trust you'll be able to handle them. Yes, Kakashi answered absently. I received the cipher yesterday from Wind Country. They're politely reminding us that we agreed to host the coming Chunin exams. Ah yes, the Sandaime nodded, his eyes narrowing. Please, inform them that we are happy to host the Chunin exam, provided they understand our laws concerning other military powers inside our walls. Hearing the masked man muffled giggles, the Sandaime couldn't suppress his groan of annoyance. He should have never told Jiraiya to write his fantasies down to stay out of trouble. I did it. Finally. Those were the words running through Naruto's mind as he tried to catch his breath and get his body to stop trembling. He couldn't believe how tired he was. It had taken most of the night since discovering the scroll in the woods, but he had done it. He'd finally learned to do a bunshin properly. Now he could show Iruka sensei, and then what? Naruto froze. trying to figure out what to do. Mizuki had never explained how training would let him pass. The exam was over, and he'd have to wait another whole year to even attempt graduating, which meant he was going to be another year behind in his goal. He was going to have to suffer another year of distrust and talking behind his back. Besides which, there was no guarantee that the Bunshin no Jutsu would be the exam next year. So what was he? Naruto trailed off, sensing the presence of someone else. Looking up, he found Iruka bent at the waist, hands on his hips, staring at him hard with an awkward grin. I've found you. Hey, I found you, nosebleeder. Naruto couldn't help but shout while pointing and jumping to his feet. Idiot, I found you, Iruka shouted back then, and paused while staring at Naruto, which sort of made him uncomfortable. Thus, Naruto reached up and scratched the back of his head, smiling to hide his nervousness. Jeez, why was Iruka looking at him so oddly? He didn't think there was any reason for it, and for that matter, why had Iruka even been looking for him in the first place? Oh, could it have been for the scroll? Oh crap, Iruka was gonna think he stole it. Naruto couldn't help but panic for a moment, scared to death at the prospect of having the thief label added to him. Maybe if he could pass it off as a joke and show what he learned. You found me. I've only learned one skill. Naruto saw the look of incredulity on Iruka's face, but he had to keep going. You're all beaten up. What were you doing exactly? Crap, he wasn't falling for it. Never mind that. Hey, I'm gonna try an incredible skill. Naruto noted the look of surprise on the older man's face and rushed on. If I do this, let me graduate. He had to act now before Iruka had the chance to think. Impress the man, then he'd forget about the scroll for a moment. Lifting his fingers, he concentrated, molding the chakra like he'd learned from the scroll. Only part way through did it occur to him that he might not have enough chakra for this technique. No, he had to have enough. Naruto froze, his concentration broken, looking at Iruka. Where'd you get the scroll? He noticed. Naruto gulped. Iruka would believe the truth. Naruto really hoped so, at least. Otherwise, he'd be in a lot of trouble he didn't want. Oh, this? I was out here training like Mizuki suggested, and I found the scroll right where he said it would be, so I opened it, and I thought if I learned one of the techniques, you'd let me graduate. Naruto registered the shocked look on the man's face a split second before Iruka glanced to the side and slammed the hand into his chest, sending Naruto sailing through the air. This was a bit of a surprise, but Naruto even knew the sound that followed next, the sound of a kunai slicing through the air. Opening his eyes as he hit the ground and he slid, Naruto saw the black metal slamming into Iruka at full speed and pinning him against a tree. Looking to his left and up, he found the familiar form of Mizuki crouching on a tree branch, one hand in front of him for balance. Naruto couldn't be sure, but he looked like he was smirking. Mizuki never smirked. Nice job finding him. Naruto glanced away from the man to stare at Iruka, who was struggling to remove the kunai embedded in his green Chunin vest. I see. That's what's going on, Iruka muttered, wincing as he removed one of the weapons from his shoulder. Okay, after this, Mizuki tries to kill Naruto for like what feels like 8 chapters. I'm skipping that bit. This is after Naruto gets away. Not much has happened still. He always thought the same thing, that on the surface the village always looked so peaceful. The Sunday was not that naive, however. He had been alive for far too long to believe that. He'd seen the closing of the Shodai and Nine-Dame Hokage's lives. He'd seen the rise and death of even his own successor against the terrible demon fox. In the distance, he could hear the sound of various jonin moving quietly, some shouting that they needed to find and kill Naruto. Yes, things were happening again, and it appeared he might have to lose yet another precious leaf of Konoha. Why had Naruto Oh my god, what did my mouth just do then? Why had Naruto stolen the scroll? Could it be he had already been a spy, planted so many years ago just for this purpose? Turning, he stared over his shoulder at the closed door leading into his office. Kakashi. Seconds later, he was greeted with the presence of the masked, one-eyed man. Well? An Anbu patrol noticed Mizuki moving out of the village quickly carrying a scroll. Kakashi answered blandly. At the time, we didn't know that it was the Forbidden Scroll. He's a teacher after all, and they assumed it was something to do with the academy. Mizuki was plotting to frame Naruto in the theft of the scroll. It would be foolish to take a forbidden scroll without checking to see if it was trapped. I think, if I'm correct, that Mizuki planted the scroll in a pre-arranged place that he knew Naruto would go. The boy would of course read the scroll and set off any traps inside. Mizuki was never a foolish one, the Sandaime said, puffing on his pipe. Iruka was heading towards the forest when he found out. Do you think that he might know where Naruto would be if he was training? More than likely, Kakashi agreed. I have a team already closing in. This whole matter will be resolved in a matter of minutes. The Hokage frowned, then shook his head. Let Naruto and Iruka handle this as much as possible. I only want your team to interfere if there's no other choice. Oh, of course, Kakashi said, his tone sounding less than enthusiastic about it, but he quietly retreated from the office, leaving the Hokage alone. The Sandaime sighed, popping his neck absently before clasping hands behind his neck and moving back to the window to stare out over the village. Was he taking too large a gamble that a genin and an almost inexperienced school teacher could beat a man good enough to steal a scroll from the Hokage's private office? Probably, but the Sandaime had this feeling that there was something large on the horizon, and for the foreseeable future, he would have to bank on Naruto. Sighing, the old man closed his eyes, wondering what his own teachers would have done. There was no telling really, in all honesty. He was probably getting ahead of himself. First, Naruto would have to not only survive the night, but show an incredible skill to merit graduation from the academy. Something that would allow him to avoid becoming a civilian. Yet somehow, the Sandaime didn't think that would be a problem. Unconsciously, he mused about getting her for the job as Naruto's sensei, since the other teams were already formed. Konoha's #1 troublemaker and Konoha's #1 most sadistic Konoichi, alone on the same team. Would be entertaining to say the least. The forest was still and calm, glowing almost eerily in the moonlight. A few nocturnal animals prowled silently, searching for prey. They froze only as the solitary figure dashed overhead, silently going above and then below branches. He was moving faster than a regular human could run on the ground, and his passage just barely disturbed the stray leaves in the trees. He was pushing himself, searching desperately with his heart pounding in his ears. How had things gone like this? He had it planned so perfectly. It shouldn't have collapsed like this, but it was okay. He could improvise and adapt. Nobody would know. No way could they know. First, he'd toaster about the bastard, then he'd remove the other moron. Then he could arrange things perfectly. Naruto had killed Iruka. Okay, let's go back. Oh, it was just when Iruka took that big shuriken to the back for Naruto like a G. Naruto, quote unquote, had killed Iruka. The scroll was gone, most likely destroyed in the fight. So sad. But it was alright because the traitor would be dead. Iruka would be a hero and the Yandaime scroll would be his. Mizuki allowed himself a rare real smile of pleasure. Things could still work out perfectly. There was nothing to worry about, nothing at all. Ahead, he caught sight of a pale orange jumpsuit. Naruto at some real speed. Mizuki smirked. There is no use denying that if Naruto lived, he would amount to something decent. Too bad he was gonna die in a forest tonight. Mizuki placed him for a moment and then sped up, zipping up even with the boy on the bright side, knowing his hinge to look like Iruka was flawless. Naruto! The boy turned in mid-leap, his gaze distrusting but hopeful. Hurry, pass me the scroll, Mizuki the Iruka Mizuki said urgently, trying to look concerned even as he moved ahead of the boy slightly. Mizuki's after it. Naruto stopped crouching and turned mid-leap, wondering what he was up to. Excuse me. Naruto pushed off the tree branch, and Mizuki was caught in midair by a flying shoulder and forced into an uncontrolled dive, snapping branches as he descended rapidly. Mizuki grunted as he smashed into the ground and skidded to a stop. Pushing himself onto his hands and knees, he turned to glare at Naruto, who was falling back against the tree, breathing heavily. "Why, Naruto?" Letting his hand fade, Mizuki glared at the boy. "How'd you know I was an Iruka?" Mizuki was taken back when Naruto suddenly smiled while chuckling. Then, even as he climbed back to his feet, he was greeted with Naruto disappearing into a puff of smoke to reveal a smiling and bloodied Iruka. "Because I am Iruka." Okay, that's kinda cold. Mizuki froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You really care enough to give your own life for the brat? I won't hand the scroll over to an idiot like you." "You're the idiot. Naruto and I are the same. If you use the skill in the scroll, you can do whatever you want." "Yeah, you can," Iruka said faintly, catching Mizuki by surprise. Iruka was agreeing with them. That had never happened before. Could the man be trying something? What could he do? Iruka was in his last legs. "Naruto isn't the same as you, though. He'll use it to protect the village." Huh? You keep thinking that. Why not just run? "When you first took it," Iruka asked, his eyes almost out of focus. "Oh, the truth is, I wanted to make sure the techniques on the scrolls weren't booby-trapped. I figure who better than the dead last student from the academy to test it out on? You just happened to come along before I could arrive and take it." "Cowardly." "You're not wrong. Naruto isn't. I've acknowledged him as one of my excellent students. He may be clumsy, so no one accepts him, and he might pull pranks, but he knows what it is to feel the pain of loneliness in your heart." Okay then. "He's a member of the Hidden Leaf Village, and it's a #1 troublemaker. He is Uzumaki Naruto." Mizuki sighed, shaking his head. You shouldn't really be surprised. Iruka was always such a blind, idealistic moron. Not that it mattered anymore, so he just chalked it up to a difference in opinion. "Whatever, Iruka. I know I said I would take care of you later, but I've changed my mind. Hurry up and die." Mizuki darted forward, the shuriken spinning perfectly like he had always practiced. 10 feet. 5. 4. He could already see Iruka's mutilated body, and that was what cost him the chance to kill the man. He had been too caught up in his own fantasy and had missed the inrush of orange until it was too late. 1 minute his gaze was locked on Iruka, the next a blue shoe was smashing into his cheek, forcing him to release his shuriken while he twisted and sailed back once more to crash into the earth. He bounced several times into his skid until he came to a stop and Mizuki could taste the tinge of copper in his mouth. Don't. You should not have done that. Don't touch Iruka, Naruto said while he slammed the scroll into the ground so it was standing upright. Mizuki watched as the boy lowered his head, focusing on him. Mizuki felt something inside of him shiver in fear. Fear of what he didn't know yet. "I'll toaster bath you." "You idiot, why'd you come out? Run away," Iruka shouted before falling in a coughing fit. "Shut up, little punk like you. I'll toaster bath you in one shot." He was taken back, however, when Naruto in response narrowed his eyes while moving his fingertips into an unfamiliar seal. "Try it, trash." Even Mizuki could tell there was no bravado in that voice. This was an entirely different Naruto than anything he'd ever dealt with. But Mizuki refused to back down, refused to believe that the boy could actually be a danger to him, a chunin. He couldn't even pass the graduation exam. "You want to try a jutsu? Then do it. Seconds later, as the boy's chakra began to explode, Mizuki wondered for a moment if the boy had used the scroll, and if he had which skills he could have learned. Then he noticed the chakra and a slightly different feel to it. It's almost more mature. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Mizuki suddenly did not feel so confident. Everywhere he looked, there was a Naruto. He was trapped in a sea of orange, and somehow he didn't think they were just illusions. "What's wrong?" "Come get me," said one of the clones, who was hanging upside down. "Weren't you gonna toaster bath me with one shot?" Another taunted Mizuki. "Well then," another one added darkly, "I'll start things off." The next one finished. Arm pulled back for a cocky, arm pulled back for a punch, and a cocky smile in place. Mizuki wasn't sure what happened. Wasn't sure of anything except that he was not getting beat into a coma by 1,000 Naruto. That's the only thing he was sure about, and none of them seemed to be holding back. He was never so grateful for unconsciousness as when it finally washed over him. Sadly, his blissful escape was populated by orange and yellow demons. Did anyone find him? No. Dang it, this is bad. He may be far away by now. The Sannin shook his head, glancing at Kakashi, who was casually leaning against the wall in the darkness. He offered a slight nod, and the Hokage smiled, smugly turning to address the panicking Jonin. "There's nothing to worry about." He found it funny how fast his soft voice could bring such a stunned silence to a group of panicking ninja. "Hokage-sama?" The Sannin was silent for a moment, puffing on his pipe, thinking. It looked like he was about to have to use her after all. That made him quite happy. Hopefully she would not turn out like her own sensei. Still, she should jump at the chance to teach, if he asked nicely at least. Better soothe those almost rabid baboons first, so they don't kill Naruto on sight. We'll be back soon with the real thief and Iruka. He saw the looks they were sending him, and he could only close his eyes and puff a little more on his pipe. "You can go home now." They hesitated, then slowly they turned, taking off, leaving the Hokage alone with the Anbu commander, who calmly walked over to join him while reading his book. I kinda like that Kakashi's the Anbu commander. Feels very right for him. Kakashi stopped within arm's reach, not saying a word, and then the Sannin contented himself to stare up at the stars overhead before speaking to the masked man. "Well, he's interesting. Preliminary reports say that Naruto not only learned a forbidden technique, but used it with surprising results to defeat Mizuki." Kakashi looked up from his book, raising an eyebrow while still looking incredibly tired. "I told the team to wait until the two were clear of the area. I'm curious. What now?" "Now," the Sannin mused, smiling to himself before glancing at the silver-haired masked man. "Now I get to see Anko and ask her about a teaching job." "You wouldn't, would you?" Kakashi deadpanned before shaking his head. "Naruto is unusual. He might need an unusual teacher. Besides, you've got enough on your plate." "Yes." Seconds later, the Sannin was alone, hands clasped behind his back and blowing smoke rings into the brightening sky, musing about life, the Yandere, and Naruto. Iruka leaned his head back against the tree trunk, concentrating on his breathing. He didn't think he had any internal injuries or bleeding, but there was no telling. The important thing, however, was that he would not be dying anytime soon. This meant he could consider the blonde, who was starting to look at him with worry. Iruka did owe Naruto, but there was only so much he could do. Naruto had failed the test, and passing the boy into the official ninja ranks would utterly be irresponsible. Yet this was the last year that Naruto could even try for it, and the blonde had met the minimum requirements. There was no questioning that. Still, there was one thing Iruka couldn't help with. Naruto sucked at illusions. It'd be a huge liability to send them into the field. So what could Iruka do? The Hokage would never let Naruto pass if he couldn't complete the last step. But then again, Naruto had just split into over 1,000 real clones right before his own eyes. Could that count? Iruka frowned, considering that the real clones over illusions would make him much less of a liability. Then Iruka winced, one of his wounds flaring up. Well, they might revoke Naruto's graduation to Genin, but for a few hours, he could let the boy, no, his brother, he realized with a start, experience what it was like to be a real ninja. Brother is crazy. Now, the only problem was where to get a forehead protector. That and the fact that Naruto kept asking if he was okay. Close your eyes. Seeing the hesitation, Iruka narrowed his eyes, frightening the boy into doing just that. Biting back a yelp of pain, Iruka reached up and removed his own forehead protector, and he put it onto the boy. Satisfied, moving onto his knees, ignoring the pain that raced through his body, he reached up and removed Naruto's goggles before slipping the forehead protector in place. Satisfied, he collapsed back against the tree. Sensei, now? Naruto sounded so anxious. Alright, you can open your eyes, Iruka said, plastering a smile on his face. Congratulations on graduating. Naruto's face registered shock at first and then surprise. To celebrate, I'll buy you a bowl of ramen. Iruka almost thought about Naruto. Iruka's thoughts about Naruto almost made him cry. Instead, he sort of smiled, and Iruka prepared himself to give a lecture, which might be his last considering his wounds, about how the hard part of being a shinobi was just starting. Naruto had different plans. The blonde lunged forward, embracing him in a bone-crunching hug. Well, Iruka would just save the lecture for the ramen place.